We're good.
No, my tea is like right out of reach. It's like right over here.
Was it that you just got busted drinking tea in the Henny Friday thing? It was like mixing it.
I didn't get busted. I just was doing it. I was just overtly doing it.
Sure.
All right. Y'all ready?
Ready.
Hi. Welcome to Unnecessary Roughness, Barstool's college football podcast, smack in the middle of bowl season. And it's also drink season, I assume, for some of you, which means some delicious high noon. Right, Kayce Smith?
Right, Brandon Walker. So as you can see, I look like I am at a bank because I am. I am sitting in one of my dad's rooms because my house is like the Bumpuses on A Christmas Story right now. There are a million cousins there. But I will say it's great because he has a little refrigerator in this room and it is stock full of high noon. Now he's a big game day pack guy, so he's got them in here. I've been sipping on a little before the show. Also, the El Pres pack. We're going to Arizona, Brandon. I think tomorrow we both get there. I'm assuming we'll have a lot of that. Jack, Katie, it's the holiday season. It's that week between Christmas and New Year's. Everybody's still probably with their family and needing to escape or having a great time drinking high noon.
There's no better way about it. The tangerine's great. I still like the peach most, but I think Kayce, tangerine's number one for you, right?
Oh, easily. Which I love. Like the peach is still my number one in my heart because it will always be, and I still want to take that bath. But the tangerine is my favorite flavor.
Yeah.
High noon. Get it. Get highnoonspirits.com or before your next tailgate, find a pack near you. It's all over the place. If you don't know where High Noon is, just go to the nearest store. I bet you it's probably there. All right.
Absolutely there.
So here we go. There's so much going on in college football. So many bowls, so many names popping up, the Miller Mosses of the world. So much going on, which means I'm going to reverse the order of the show, and I'm just going to skip right to the playoff. I just want to talk about Michigan and Alabama. We're just going to go straight to the playoff. We'll get to everything else going on.
I love it.
Your transfer portal stuff, your Miller Mosses, your everything. We might circle back to that, but I think I don't think I'm saying anything wrong when I say this is probably the most anticipated 4 teams we've had in the playoff since we've had the playoff. All apologies to Florida State. They're still down bad, according to the responses to your tweet there, Jack.
Bad.
Oh my God. I think maybe it's because they're all home and, holidays are stressful. You can love your family and still have stressful holidays. Not every family is loved. Every family has issues.
What are you talking about?
Where are you going with this?
No, you guys got to let me cook. Come on. And some families have bad issues. And here's the thing. It doesn't matter what family you come from. If you're a Florida State fan, you hate life right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think I've seen a group of angry individuals like that in my life. I didn't even read the replies. It was almost like
yeah.
I didn't mute it, but I just kept seeing that my notifications were 20 plus every time I refresh, which means I'm getting called all types of words. And for those who are confused, I essentially said whispers. Florida State struggled with that Louisville team with the college football spot on the line. All that being said, let's get back in the college football playoff.
Jack, when I saw that, I was reminded that Florida State Twitter, love them or hate them, they are never quiet. They were the original college football Twitter. If you know, like FSU Twitter was the loudest, most obnoxious.
Also, by the way, when I hit that tweet, and I know Brent, because nothing against Katie or Kayce, but I know Brandon knows it too sometimes because we kind of get in the weeds a little bit more. When I hit send on that tweet, I had a smirk on my face because I knew exactly how that was going to go. I don't even know if I believe that tweet 100%, but I was like, you know what? I'm a little bored.
It's when Brandon does his tap dancing meme and or the GIF or whatever. Like that's what you were doing. And I've gotten a lot better at because I muted things too. Like I kind of know, but you knew both when you were crafting that, what you were doing. And it was phenomenal because you got the reaction you wanted, but they're upset. They have every right to be upset.
They do. They really do. But at the same time, also get over it. Committee made the right decision. Now, we have Alabama, Michigan, Rose Bowl. We have Washington. We have Texas. We have everything in front of us. We have a national championship coming. But we start with Alabama and Michigan because this is as marquee a matchup you can get in the semifinals. So this is 2 of the the greatest coach of all time. It's an Alabama dynasty that's been here for the last 15 years, 6 national titles over the last 15 years, and it's a Michigan team who hasn't won a national title since 1948. And this is 2 of the big time programs in America clashing. I assume everybody knows where they're going with this. Everybody thinks, but really, I just want to sit here and appreciate the fact that this is a gigantic, huge, big time matchup for college football in the playoff.
It's massive. And like you said, every year we could probably convince ourselves that it's the best of the 4 teams that we've seen since the birth of the playoff. This one actually is. Like, it's not a recency bias. When you look at the teams and kind of how these played out, to the point where obviously if you're a gambler, you're watching every single bowl game you're gambling on. Obviously, if your team is playing, you're watching that. But I think that this college football playoff is so highly anticipated and we're so excited that it has taken away a little bit of the pop for the normal college football fan. Because I think a lot of times, and the transfer portal does that stuff too, but these matchups are so massive, and Alabama, Michigan being, I think, much bigger than Texas, Washington, just because of the 2 teams. It's made it all a little bit less exciting, in my opinion. I'm still watching it. I'm still following it. I'm still betting on it. But all I want to do is for New Year's Day to come. That's all I want.
Yeah, I think the transfer portal has more to do with it than the playoff, but it certainly is a discussion we can have in a little bit of how much mileage you're getting out of bowl season at this point. When I look at Alabama and Michigan, I certainly come at it from a perspective of thinking Alabama's going to win. That's where I start. There are certain elements that lead me to believe that. The more I look at it, the more I start to pause.
Really?
Yeah. Well, I got a couple thoughts here.
I'm the opposite. So
I got a couple thoughts. Number one, you give the greatest coach in college football history a month to prepare for these games, it generally goes his direction. It generally goes Nick Saban's direction. And you look at that entire coaching staff. Offensive coordinator Tommy Rees, if they have this game in September, I'm not sure it's close. I think Michigan kills them. But over the last 3 months, they have figured out that offense. They figured out Jalen Milroe. They figured out everything. So you give that staff a month, I think Alabama's going to be hell on wheels. However, I have a game that I think bears watching in regards to this game. The Peach Bowl, which I believe is Friday night, might be Saturday. I don't know. The days don't exist right now. The Peach Bowl is 10-2 Ole Miss from the SEC against 10-2 Penn State from the Big Ten. Penn State lost to Ohio State and Michigan. And everybody's perspective is, Penn State underachieved again. They're trash. They can't beat Ohio State, Michigan. I think Michigan's wins over Penn State and Ohio State might be 2 top 5 wins. Now, that's the only 2 decent wins they have all year, but that might be 2 top 5 wins. I'm wondering what Ole Miss Penn State's going to look like, because Ole Miss, again, 10 wins from the SEC. Alabama beat them by 2 touchdowns. Penn State, 10 wins from the Big Ten. Michigan beat them on the road by 9 points. I wonder if Penn State destroys Ole Miss, it's going to swing my respect for Michigan all further than I could have imagined it going. Now, maybe I'm thinking of something that shouldn't be thought about. Maybe I'm just doing something that I'm just panicking. I don't want to, whatever. But as I get closer, I think this has potential to be an all-time playoff game.
No, I think that that's fair, because when we talked about bowl games going into bowl season and we said, which games do we actually care about? We all mentioned that game because we know both Ole Miss and Penn State are actually going to want to play. And whether you agree or disagree if all teams should want to play or not, we know a lot of teams don't want to be in the bowl games that they are. These 2 teams want to prove that they are in contention for the best teams in the country, and that next year in the 12-team playoff, they can both say we deserve to be there. So I agree with that. I'm the opposite though as you, where I say, my first reaction is I think Michigan's going to win. I think it's going to be close. And then the more I dig into it, the more I look at it, I'm like, this is when Nick Saban wins. This is the type of game with all the time that Nick Saban is going to come out victorious, and we're all going to sit around and be like, yeah, obviously, we counted him out. But I do agree with you. Maybe I'll feel differently when I see Ole Miss and Penn State play. But at the end of the day, they're not playing for a playoff. So I don't know if we can do that much college football math for that, but it's a good point.
Jack, where do you enter this? Where are you coming from?
I do have pause on the month-long break in terms of just how much that of an advantage that would be for Nick Saban. I think it's pretty big. And how different are these teams? I would say Michigan's a little bit better, but the advantages are huge in terms of just coaching. But how big are they? Like how much? How much better of a coach right now on when was that? On Monday afternoon or Monday evening, will Nick Saban be than Jim Harbaugh?
Yeah.
Like how many? Like would you say significantly better, kind of better, or just better?
That's a good point. I think Jim Harbaugh is a fantastic coach. However, if you look at Michigan's recent bowl history and certainly playoff history, it hasn't been good. They showed up with a month off to play TCU, a team they should have destroyed, and they got beat. They showed up to play Georgia after a month off. They did not belong on the same field as Georgia. Now, 2 years ago, Georgia and this year's Alabama are two totally different monsters. Alabama's not as good as that Georgia team was, and Michigan is better now than they were 2 years ago. So I don't think Michigan is showing up against an SEC team and just going to be 3 touchdowns down out the door. I don't think that's going to happen. I do think this will be the best team Michigan's played. Obviously, I think Alabama's very, very good. I mean, they're in the fucking playoffs. I'm just saying things now, but
Brandon, to your point about TCU, yes, obviously the Georgia team 2 years ago is not the same. I mean, that Georgia team was a monster. TCU last year was not very good for what we expected them to be, and when they played Georgia. But Alabama this year, I believe, is better than TCU last year. And when you look at the way Max Duggan was able to beat Michigan last year, he wasn't great in the air, but he was able to score with his legs. He had 2 rushing touchdowns. Well, what do we know Jalen Milroe can do? Now, I understand Michigan's better, and I'm not saying that we can do all of that transitive property, but if we look at Georgia 2 years ago, well, Alabama's not them. Okay, well, Alabama might be better than TCU was last year, and they figured out how to beat Michigan in the playoff. I don't believe that that's the only answer, but I do think that gives credit to your point, is like, hey, like TCU was there, and they won that game. They beat Michigan somehow. Alabama's pretty damn good. That's where I start talking myself into it, is Alabama has a month now to prepare the way that TCU had a month to prepare and beat Michigan.
Well, both offensive lines are great. Michigan probably has the best offensive line in the country. Michigan has a better set of running backs. Alabama has a better set of receivers. Both defensive lines are very good. Michigan's defense is better, right? Statistically a little bit better, but certainly not a whole lot. I think Michigan against the run was like 6th in the country this year. Alabama was like 19th. I don't know. They're both really, really good, really good defenses. But it comes down – I hate to boil it down, but it comes down to quarterback, right? Last year, and this is the honest to God truth, Michigan lost to TCU because of one guy. His name was J.J. McCarthy. He threw 2 pick sixes. He had great stats, 345 yards, scored touchdowns. But if he doesn't throw those pick sixes, they win that game in a walk. But he did. The way they won games this year is he does not make mistakes. Well, against TCU, he made mistakes. Can Alabama make him make mistakes? Jalen Milroe, he isn't the downfield throwing threat that a lot of people think, but he's better than meets the eye. Like, he can throw it down the field. People don't think he can, but he can. He can obviously run the ball, but can he make mistakes? Listen, against Ohio State, Michigan's defense was very good, but they did give up yards. They gave up yards. The thing they did was they forced Ohio State's quarterback into throwing 2 back-breaking interceptions. One to start the game, one to end the game. If they can do that to Jalen Milroe, they're going to play for a national title. I don't know. It's up to Tommy Rees and Jalen Milroe to make sure that doesn't happen. But literally one mistake from a quarterback might lose this game.
And another aspect of what I was thinking about from this game is it's weird to say, and you guys may disagree right away when I say it, and then you'll kind of be like, oh, actually, I see what you're saying. Michigan's more experienced coming into this game than Alabama is.
That's so weird to say.
That's so weird to think. I mean, a lot of this team was here last year. None of the players on this Alabama team have been in outs. Like, I don't think any of them were on the 2020 team.
There's certainly a couple that were on the 2021 team that played for a national title, that lost to Georgia in the national title game. So that you've got guys that have been there before. Jermaine Burton played and won that game, and now he's on Alabama side. Like, there's guys that have. I think
JJ's played much bigger games than Jalen.
Easily.
Agreed.
But he's lost them.
And
now,
I think
Ohio State.
Who's the better quarterback in this game?
So I don't know.
I think the answer will end up being who doesn't turn the ball over, because you're so right. It's a 44.5 point total.
Yeah.
It could, I think, and it's kind of, it's like, oh, of course, Jack Mack, of course, Brandon Katie, like, don't turn the ball over. But I think that, like, a turnover in the Texas-Washington game won't be backbreaking. But
I think a
imagine,
lot of
like, there's a
people-
fumble in Michigan has the ball in Alabama's 33-yard line, and JJ throws an interception. Like, that could be game.
I agree with that.
I
do
think
think
a lot of people hear that question you just asked, Jack, and they say they immediately say JJ McCarthy's better. I think that's disrespectful of Jalen Milroe. Jalen Milroe was really good, and I'm just looking at their stats this year, and stats are just stats. They're just numbers thrown on a page. It's almost. I was going to say it's almost identical, but I actually was just looking at Jalen Milroe's stats twice. But they are
just
very.
identical.
They're very, like, Jalen Milroe through the air completed 65% of his passes, 23 touchdowns this year, 6 interceptions. Like, that's a very efficient quarterback. And efficiency is what JJ McCarthy's entire game is. Like, his game is just he's going to throw for about 215 yards. He's going to complete 80% of his passes. He's going to have 1 touchdown. He's going to make right decisions, and he's not going to turn the ball over. And that's who they want him to be. And if he does that here, if Jalen Milroe does it, whoever does that here wins the game. Go ahead, Kayce. I cut you off.
No, it's okay. I do think that I would lean JJ McCarthy just because he has gotten Michigan to the playoff before. Now, obviously, when you look at the TCU game, like you said, he was kind of the reasoning. But, beating Ohio State the way that they have, he hasn't had to be spectacular. Now, what I will say with Jalen Milroe is that what he has evolved into to get to where we are now versus what happened earlier in the year, his evolution of becoming a good quarterback has happened much faster. And they're on a heater right now. Like, yes, Auburn gave him a little bit of a problem, whatever. It's the Iron Bowl. The way that Jalen Milroe has played, he's steadily gotten better every single week. And then they have a month to prepare. I still think JJ McCarthy's better. I know that we've all argued about that. But do I think Jalen Milroe's ceiling is probably a lot higher than JJ McCarthy? Absolutely. And that's what we're going to see in the playoff is how high has his ceiling gotten in the last month, because where it started in September versus where we'll be in January are 2 completely different players.
Did y'all see the Alabama fans reacting to what Jalen Milroe said today, that Bill O'Brien, the offensive coordinator last year, said he should play a position other than quarterback? And Alabama fans are all just, quote, tweeting it to death. Oh, my God, see, this is why he shouldn't be an offensive coordinator, blah, blah, blah. These exact same fans in September were saying the exact same thing. They were saying this guy shouldn't be the quarterback. This guy needs to be another position. You got to be somebody else. Give us Buckner. Give us this. Give us that. And Tommy Rees and Jalen Milroe and Nick Saban, everybody went into the lab. Everybody went in there. They changed everything. They figured out what works for him, and they turned him into one of the best quarterbacks in the country over the last 2 months of the season. J.J. McCarthy was always a top 15 to 20 quarterback this season. So you've got these guys that have come from completely different angles, but I think have arrived at the same place. Now, will J.J. McCarthy's experience of struggling last year fuel him to be the best version of himself this year?
I think yes.
You think yes, but he's playing a hell of a lot better defense this year than he played last year. So yeah, listen, you might say, well, he sucked in the playoff last year. He's going to use that experience and he's going to get better. Well, if you struggle against TCU's defense last year, which even if you say TCU was whatever, their defense was not good at any point last year. At any point was it ever good. They were winning games 45-35, So if he did that against them, is it naturally going to fuel him to get better against a better defense? Now, this isn't a classic Alabama defense. This isn't like the number one Alabama defense we're used to. But still pretty damn good.
It is. I do think that the mistake that was made, and we talked about this a year ago, the way that they played Georgia, and again, Georgia being one of the greatest teams we'd ever seen, is different than playing TCU. But, there was all the rumors of, they didn't really prepare for Georgia. They were, caught up in the college football playoff hoopla, and then they were supposed to be prepared more last year. If you make that mistake 3 times in a row, like let's say Alabama just beats them because they're just the better team, that's different. If Michigan goes in and loses that game because of the mistakes and because it looks like they dicked around, then that's more of a coaching thing. I think JJ McCarthy is going to come in and be like, I cannot look the way that I did last year. Does that mean they beat them? No, but it can look a little bit better. Like, he looked messy against TCU when they lost. He could still look pretty damn good, and Alabama could just be better than them.
Now, can Michigan win this game leaning almost exclusively on Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards? Jack, I asked you that question.
No, I think JJ has to make a few plays. I think it's going to be really difficult. Alabama's defense is not a juggernaut, but it is pretty damn good.
Yeah.
I think the unit matchups are kind of similar. That's why this game's so hard to – it's like Michigan's offense and Alabama's offense are pretty much the same. Shaky quarterback that can kind of run the ball. And then they both have a running game that's pretty good. I would say Michigan's a little bit better. But as you said, Alabama has better wide receivers. I don't think JJ has to win the game. I feel like we're diving too much into the narrative of last year for JJ.
Yeah.
That was so long ago. It is in his
That's
mind, but I mean, the man's won 2 huge games since then. And we also can go back to the Roman Wilson catch that wasn't a catch, that was a touchdown, that wasn't a touchdown, and the whole game could have changed. Does that excuse his performance? No, but I think JJ's a gamer, and I don't think he's going to be really thinking too much about that performance come the second quarter.
It's funny, you can do the same thing with both teams in their last game, right? Like, you can say if that Roman Wilson catch isn't a catch, who knows? But Alabama had one too. Alabama had one against Georgia, and I can't remember the receiver. I don't know if it was Burton. I don't remember who it was. But you remember the play I'm talking about, and then late in the first half, they're driving a play just like that where it should have been reviewed, probably was going to be incomplete, and they never reviewed it, and Alabama ends up winning the game. Whatever. I think Alabama wins by 3. I think it's a war. I think you're looking at like a 20-17 game. I think under would be the play for me. I think I don't think either quarterback's going to even try to throw for 350 yards and 4 touchdowns. I think both are going to just try to manage the game. I think both offensive coordinators are going to try to manage the game, and I think you're going to see an absolute slugfest. I don't think Michigan's going to get outclassed in talent like they did 2 years ago.
No.
I don't think they're going to shit down their leg like they did last year. I just think Alabama, a month, Nick Saban, it's a lot.
Nick Saban being, he's won obviously 7 national titles, and then Jim Harbaugh has not won a playoff game. And then every other coach, including, Washington and Texas, none of them have won a playoff game, let alone a national title. Saban's won 7 of them. Now, not all of them were in the college football playoff era, but still, that alone is a scary stat. I'm still going to lean Michigan. I think, Michigan allows the fewest points. Their defense allows the fewest points in the country. I understand the Big Ten's offenses don't jump off the page, but still, it's under 10. It's either 9 or 9.5 points allowed throughout the season. That to me, and I know Georgia has a hell of a defense, but that to me is going to be the most stout defense that Alabama is going to see. I think it's going to be Michigan by, I don't want to say by 3 because like that we'll have the same. I'm going to say Michigan by 7, but I think it's going to be a very, very fun game. I would not be shocked if Alabama wins and we all are sitting here like, again, duh, it's Nick Saban.
This would be his most impressive, if he were to win it, this would be his most impressive national title. Now, that's on down the road. He would have to win not only this game, but another game against Texas. So, spoiler alert to what I'm about to say in that game. But he would have to beat Michigan, and then he'd have to beat Texas. And I think that's
but
coming from where they were in September. We never saw an Alabama team look as down as they looked in the first couple of weeks of the season.
They benched Jalen Milroe. I mean, that to me, I know it was so long ago, and whether it was the right decision or not, like we're talking about a quarterback that, again, going back to how good he's gotten, he was benched. But the same point I just made about Nick Saban versus Jim Harbaugh, then you look at Kalen DeBoer and Steve Sarkisian, and you say the same thing. It's like, I'm going to take Nick Saban every single time over those guys. It's just, to me, what these matchups are going to look like. I think that if Alabama beats Michigan, they're winning the national title. Like, I know Washington and Texas are not slouches of teams, obviously. The biggest thing to me is going to be Alabama beating Michigan. And if they do, like, I pick them to win the national title without even really having to think about it. That's probably not fair, but that's the way I feel.
All right, before we get to the other game, cashews, almonds, pecans, pistachios. dried mangoes, crystallized ginger, dates, jelly beans, jawbreakers, root beer barrels. The variety is vast. Where?
Nuts.com.
Nuts.com. Nuts.com is your one-stop shop for freshly roasted nuts, dried fruit, sweets, pantry staples like specialty flours, and more. Their wide selections means there's something for everyone at
Nuts.com. And as I have said, I love a good bag of nuts. I'm a big cashew person. Love some cashews. I know I'm big bag of nuts, gal. And you know what's the worst? When you got a small bag of nuts and you can't stick your hand in there correctly. But I'm being serious. I'm not even trying.
Big bag, big sack.
Big bag.
You like a big sack?
No. Kayce's bag of nuts are actually on her desk at work, and there's people that will go and steal it. And that's
they want
like
to stick their hand in my
people.
big
They
bag of
say
nuts.
don't share your nuts, but some people do. They spread it around.
No, it's a healthy snack. I really do. When Nuts.com sent me peanuts and cashews and almonds. They sent me a bunch of things, and they're healthy, and it's a nice snack to have when you're watching games because you don't feel like a complete moron eating junk. You're eating nuts, and nuts are good.
At Nuts.com, quality is a top priority. They roast their nuts and pop their corn the same day it ships, so they reach you deliciously fresh, satisfaction guaranteed. Shop a la carte at any time or opt into hassle-free auto delivery so you never run out of your favorite items. And if you're already stocked up at home, they sell directly to businesses. Right now, Nuts.com is offering new customers a free gift with purchase and free shipping on orders of $29 or more at Nuts.com/rough. So go check out all the delicious options at Nuts.com/rough. You'll receive a free gift and free shipping when you spend $29 or more. That's Nuts.com/rough. Now on the other game.
Brandon.
Yes.
We got to let Jack and Katie pick this game.
Oh, did they not? I thought. I don't know. We haven't done it in like a week.
I know it's okay. You know what? You're stuck in the holiday Bermuda Triangle. It's fine, but we gotta let everybody.
Katie, what do you think?
I had Michigan to win the whole thing in the preseason. It goes back to like what we said about James Franklin and is he going to beat is he going to beat Ohio State, Michigan? Like we all think, oh, is this the year? Is this the year? I think if Jim Harbaugh goes over the hump, it is the year. But I just have the gut feeling of just Nick Saban and Alabama. With the quarterback thing, I think Jalen Milroe is the bigger risk, the higher reward. Like I think he is much higher ceiling and floor, whereas JJ McCarthy is a very safe, good option. I'll stick to my preseason guns and go with Michigan just so I can have that clip of being right the entire time. But Nick Saban scares the shit out of me.
Jack.
Yeah, I'm gonna roll with Michigan. I think they're just slightly better everywhere. I think they're a slightly better defense. I think they're a slightly better offense. The only real edge, I guess I would give to you know what? Zach Zinter is a big loss for Michigan in this game. Alabama's offensive line is nothing to like snark at. I mean, it's very good. It had some issues early in the season. They really figured it out. That was a big, step forward for them. But I think Michigan still edges them out there. Wide receivers, Alabama's better. But, who can make the big plays? And I guess I close my eyes and I see Dallas Turner making a big sack or whatnot, but I still think Michigan, the metrics say that Michigan's better. And I live and die usually by those. SP Plus has them as 9 points better, which is, I think, a bit egregious. ESPN's FPI has them 3 points better, which I think is about fair. And the coaching advantage is huge. But Jim Harbaugh, I feel like this is a legacy-defining game for Jim Harbaugh. If Saban loses, it doesn't matter.
Right.
Right? We still know he's it does matter.
Harbaugh didn't win here. When's he going to fucking win it?
That's what I'm saying. That's what let's say Nick Saban just pulls his pants down figuratively in this game. It's going to be tough for Jim Harbaugh. Not that maybe he just won't care, but this is a legacy defining game.
We talked about this on the Pro Football Show a lot about how if, Dan really wants Harbaugh to the Bears and he's like, well, if he wins the national title, then that probably sends him to the NFL faster. And the question is what if they get their shit kicked in by Alabama? Like, could he say, you know what? I don't feel like dealing with what the NCAA may be cooking up. I've lost now 3 years in a row, embarrassingly in the semis, and I just need to go. Like, maybe the worst scenario is like they win and then they lose in the national title. But I think that if he gets his doors kicked off by Nick Saban, he might be like, I don't want to deal with this shit anymore.
I think regarding his NFL future, he's either going or he's not. And I don't think any of these games will matter towards that. I do think he's probably going. But I don't know. It does feel like the NCAA, somebody in the NCAA wants him to either not be there or wants his head on a stick. So
they cannot stand him. Like, did he hit on his wife or something? Like, is there's somebody's wife he flirted with and they don't like him?
We
So,
go to
by the way, Katie and Brandon, or Katie and Jack, you know what we just did, right? We just the three of us just set ourselves up for the most obnoxious Brandon knows ball rant after the college football playoff, because he's the only.
No, he's not going to take it out on us.
Oh, please.
I mean, there's bigger fish to fry.
There's a bigger fish to fry. Like, we're not. I mean, I think all three of us are all in agreement. Alabama is more than capable of winning this game. We're not. Yeah. There's one guy who is, he's riding for his squad, and I think, and he's been calling a YKB boy, someone that he's been saying he doesn't know ball. So
yeah,
you're right. Yeah. We won't take it. We will be the first podcast he does, though, post. So maybe we'll just kind of catch strays a little bit. It's okay, Brandon. I'm going to be honest. If you're right about Alabama, you should be the world's most biggest obnoxious asshole you can possibly be.
Do you really feel like you needed to tell me that?
No, I wanted to give you my graces.
Okay. Texas and Washington play in the second game. They play in the other semifinal, and there often are semifinals where you think, all right, whoever wins this game is going to win the national title. I don't think that's the case this year. I think Michigan could beat Alabama and then lose to Texas. I think Alabama could beat Michigan and lose to Texas. Like, I think that is possible. I guess what it sounds like. I mean, just what?
What's your ideal championship matchup? Like, what gets your juices flowing the most?
I would prefer Alabama and Texas because it means Alabama beats Michigan, and I don't have to hear that Michigan shit. However, I think for the country and the sport, I think Michigan-Texas would be the biggest possible national title matchup, because you get a desperate Michigan team that hasn't been there in forever, and you get those eyeballs, you get Texas eyeballs. Like, I think that's the perfect storm of giganticness for college football.
Alabama, Texas.
It'd be big. It'd be big, but it wouldn't be as big as Texas-Michigan, in my opinion.
I don't know. You could go either way on that. I would prefer Washington to be in it, just because at the end of the day, Texas is a rival of mine. I do think that Alabama, Texas, Michigan, Texas are both massive matchups. Not to take anything away from Washington, and I do think Washington can win this game, but Washington just does not have the pop that Texas does. But I think either option in the Rose Bowl would do incredibly well.
I think there's a bit of sameness with Alabama being, like, if you're and I hate talking about casual fans, but if you are a casual fan and say, oh, who's playing the national title game? Alabama again? All right, yeah, I've seen that before. Whereas Michigan, Texas, there's just two marquee names that haven't been there at all. So you're going to have people in Texas who haven't watched a game in 10 years watch because the Longhorns are in it. You're going to have the same thing with people in the upper Midwest, like, Michigan's playing in it? Oh, let me check it out. So I don't think that exists with Alabama. I don't think that exists with Alabama.
I know what Katie wants. Katie wants Michigan for the merch because it would be good for Barstool Sports.
I mean, the entire company, I think, will benefit. And anything that Dave pushes and gets behind does.
Oh, yay. Dave gets richer. Whatever. Okay. So, Texas, Washington, can we please fucking talk about Texas, Washington?
The Sugar Bowl.
Please.
The second semifinal
talk about
game.
it for 20 minutes.
The Sugar Bowl. Go.
I don't want to have my prediction here come across as disrespect for Washington, because I had Washington 12-0 in the playoff in the preseason. I had this. I was right on this. Washington, I felt would go through the Pac-12. They did. They did it a little differently than I thought they would, but they did it. But I just think Texas, and I know Texas is 11-1, Washington's 12-0, or actually 12-1 and 13-0. Texas has a blemish. Washington does not. I think Texas is I think they're better. And I think they're going to control the line of scrimmage. I think their defensive line is going to be too much for Washington's offensive line. Washington has become a lot more balanced team. Over the first couple of weeks of the season, it was throw. probably the best receiver group in the country, Dunze and the other guys. They've got the best receivers in the country. They throw. But as the season went on, Penix started to get a little wear and tear on his body. Enter Dylan Johnson. They started running the ball. Defense started playing better. I don't think they're going to be able to run the ball as well against this Texas defensive line. I think this Texas defensive line, they're monsters. I think the matchups lean towards Texas. The only thing that gives me pause is Sarkisian in big games scares me.
Mm-hmm.
He came through against Alabama, but against Oklahoma, they had no business with that being a game. They should have won that game by 3 touchdowns. But he pissed down his leg and he lost that game. If he did it in the regular season, he could do it here. I just think the talent everywhere it needs to be is better for Texas. So I'm going Texas with this.
Here's my question for you with that, because obviously the reason that it was a no-brainer that Texas gets in if Alabama's going to be in is because of that head-to-head in week 2. But if they say they played in week 8, week 9, week 10, and I know it's a big hypothetical, but would you still feel that Sark could beat Saban? Because I don't. And that, again, that doesn't matter because they did it in week 2 in Tuscaloosa, but that Alabama team is not the same team. So I don't necessarily give that much credit as, Sark beat Saban. It's like, well, yeah, he did, but they didn't even know who was going to be their starting quarterback the next week. So I don't know. Maybe that's not fair.
Well, that's a little bit on them, though. That's a little bit on them for not having Milroe to that level at that point.
Definitely. But that's why I don't think that I would take like, oh, well, Sark beat Saban. Well, he didn't beat him, to me when Alabama was firing on all cylinders. And that scares me a little bit. But it's also, he's, coaching against Kalen DeBoer, who they coached against each other last year. Now, granted, the game didn't matter because it was just a random bowl game, but he's not, it's not some like juggernaut of coaching against Saban when Alabama was firing on all cylinders.
DeBoer is also ridiculously good. What's his record as a head coach? Like 78-4. Like it's something ridiculous. Washington, Kalen DeBoer has been incredible. Yes, Jack. Jack is itching to talk. Go ahead, Jack.
No, sorry. I actually didn't mean to do that. And as I was doing it, I made it seem like I really needed to talk. I do think Washington, Texas, are they kind of like a similar team?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like they are.
They are. I think Texas is probably built a little bit better in the trenches.
Yeah, 100%.
Washington's D-line
I would have said that before the Oregon game, though, with Washington and Oregon, and Washington just took it to Oregon, and they are smaller. The size difference is huge. 4 points seems like a lot here.
Can I say something about that point you just made?
Yeah.
I know that we all assumed Oregon would do something to them because of the points that Oregon rolled up against bad teams. But the thing about that is I think we were just all wrong. We all just assumed we all crowned Oregon based on nothing. Texas went on the road and beat Alabama. Oregon was given this credit as being this incredible, unbelievable team, and they beat nobody. They never beat any goddamn body. The best team they beat was 8-4 Oregon State. I think we were just wrong on Oregon, whereas Texas has gone out and actually proven it on the field.
Texas, and we talked about this when they beat Alabama, all the stuff I just said about Alabama not being Alabama, then that's fine. But Texas in the trenches, both on offensive and defensive line, has stood up to Alabama, which it doesn't matter if Alabama is not of Alabama caliber. They're always going to have massively talented lines because of who they recruit. So I would agree with that. Washington's defensive line has not been great. The thing about Oregon, though, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, it was like their offense was so good and Bo Nix was so good, and their defense was stopping people in the Pac-12, which was a conference full of quarterbacks and weapons. Now, whether that was fair at the end or not, Washington put up 481 yards of offense against Oregon in the Pac-12 championship. So that's kind of where I stand with it. It's like we were crowning Oregon, but their defense looked pretty damn good all year.
Against bad teams.
I think that's where you're right. We're probably just wrong. But the Pac, I think when you have a defense in a conference,
they played a Utah team without a quarterback. They didn't have to play Arizona. They just I feel like Oregon put a lot of hay in the barn against bad teams. Whereas so we assume when they play Washington again, oh, it's a fluke. Washington barely beat them at home, and Washington came out and said, you know what, we're just better than they are, and we were better than they were last time. We're better than they are now. But I feel like Oregon was kind of a mirage. Washington absolutely is not. Now, I haven't mentioned the name Michael Penix yet. There is a chance because Dylan Gabriel did this. Dylan Gabriel beat Texas. there's a chance he goes out and throws for 450 and 5 touchdowns and wins this game by himself.
That's where, when you look at, I mean, yes, we can say that in the trenches, like, you lean Texas, and I'm not taking anything away from Quinn Ewers and Texas offense, because obviously we've seen how good they are, but this Washington offense is elite. They are incredibly good. And the only time Texas lost, again, we saw Jalen Milroe progress, but at the time he was not the Jalen Milroe of now. The only time that they faced an offense really like that was Oklahoma, and they lost.
Rutgers is dominating Miami, and they're only up 7-0, Jack. They're dominating them.
The history of Miami football is losing bowl games. So there's like all they do is lose bowl games.
They need to lose this one. That's all I'm saying.
They're gonna lose. We're all Rutgers Knights today. Roo rah
They
rah.
need to lose by more than 2.5 points, is what I'm trying to tell you.
You know, I know. No, I think we're fine. I think Texas wins in a thriller. They 28 or 31, or maybe it's 35-31. 2 minutes to go. Quinn Ewers goes on an iconic drive. Xavier Worthy back of the end zone. Touchdown. 38-35 final. Washington covers. Texas plays in the national championship. And we get on the stream and say, man, what a day of football.
Katie?
Do we know if Xavier Worthy is playing for sure?
As I was saying that, I remembered his ankle is, I would assume he's playing.
I know that,
probably
like,
give it a go.
Yeah, early in December, they were like,
you know what? 80 Mitchell. He throws it to 80 Mitchell instead.
Katie?
Where would you rank all 4 quarterbacks in the playoffs right now? Side noting. Like 1, 2, 3, 4.
I'd probably go Penix, Ewers, Milroe, McCarthy, but I think the margin is thin. You're talking about 130 quarterbacks in the country. You're talking about like the number 2 against and number 4 and number 6, the number 8, like that. You're talking about 4 top 10 quarterbacks. So if I say McCarthy's last, people are, oh my God, you're just an awful person. No, I think out of this group, he would rank 4th. And him or Milroe would rank 4th because the other 2
There's
quarterbacks
2
are
tiers.
incredible.
And the 2 tiers are the games that are happening, at least in my opinion. Like the best quarterback matchups later in the day, and the best overall team matchup is earlier in the day.
Which is why the team totals are the way that they are. And that
And
so many more points. You're right. So many more points.
And Washington and Texas's defenses definitely have a lot more questions.
Yeah, no, I think it's a fair thing. I do think, I mean, obviously Michael Penix is the number 1, but Texas has hit turbo mode too. So it's a good question, Katie.
That Texas offense, though, sorry, Katie, after I say this, that Texas offense, I know it was Oklahoma State, but like that Texas offense looked lethal in their last game.
Well, and Texas Tech, they scored almost 60 against Texas Tech. Now, I understand it's Texas Tech, but both in that game and the Oklahoma State game, it looked like they could have scored probably 2 or 3 more touchdowns.
And you could link it directly to the fact that Quinn is more healthy than he was. So we'll see. Go.
Katie,
sorry,
Texas,
Katie.
Washington, who wins?
I think Texas. I'm interested to see also because Sark used to be the head coach of Washington, if that has any effect on it. But I think Texas.
Kayce, Texas, Washington, who wins?
Brandon, I'm in a
that
pickle.
Face said everything we need to know. It's you don't want to do it, but you're picking Texas.
Yeah, I'm in a pickle because, I said this and I got into a lot of heat with Aggies. I hate when, and not just anybody, it's like whenever you cry online when your rival is playing for something bigger, it just looks bitter. But in reality, I'm going to be honest, I do not want to see Texas in the national title as an Aggie. I don't want to see it. As somebody who covers this sport nationally and has to be unbiased, whether Aggie fans want to hear that or not, I think Texas beats Washington. I had Texas to win the Big 12 championship. I think this team is incredibly good. I don't want to say it. It hurts my Aggie heart. I'm sorry, but Texas is winning this game. Woo! Okay. Do you know how hard this is? Like
I'm reacting to something totally different. Go ahead.
Oh.
You do you.
No, my dad is a saint of a human being. He's got it. One of his diplomas is up here. He would cry if Texas made it. And he's the people that I'm talking to. Like, Dad, just don't go out and say, oh, fuck Texas because A&M is not there. But It matters. It does matter. It would matter if Ole Miss was there. It would matter if Duke was there. Jack, it would matter if Rutgers was there.
Okay. Let me say this. I met your dad. I met your mom.
You have, yes.
Saints. They're wonderful, wonderful people. Absolutely terrific Americans. Your dad's about to cry his eyes out because Texas is playing for a national title. And not only that, when they get there, they have a chance to win the damn thing.
This is not a joke. And this is why college football is the best. And this is why when I said this on Twitter, it was like, I knew when I send push tweet, like, don't root against your rival. My dad talks more about the Houston, Texas ref show than anything else that happened this year in college football. He'll bring it up. He's like, did you see Houston got screwed over by the refs because it meant Texas won that game? He doesn't want it to happen. You know, A&M lost Oklahoma State in our bowl game, whatever, it didn't matter. On to the Mike Elko era. All that he cares about right now is that Texas does not make the national title. So the Aggie in me is in pain. Unfortunately, for all the Aggies that are mad at me for this, I have to talk about it unbiased because I do think Texas is the better team than Washington. And if I just picked on my heart, I would be wrong more often. And I'm wrong a lot. Texas is better than Washington. Texas will be in the national title. It hurts. I'm sorry.
I'm going to go a different way than everybody else. There is so very rarely two great playoff games. Last year did we have two good playoff games last year? Yeah, we had two great playoff games
but
last
then
year.
the national title sucked.
National title sucked. We had two good semifinals last year. I don't think that continues this year. I think Alabama-Michigan's an all-time classic, and I think Texas wins by 3 touchdowns against Washington.
So we're all on Texas.
There's small advantages we're not even talking about. Like, the fact that it's in New Orleans, that's a huge advantage for Texas, I believe. This Texas narrative began the night they beat Alabama. And once you beat Alabama on the road, it becomes national title or bust. They had a hiccup against Oklahoma. They fought through it. Their quarterback got hurt. They fought through it. And I think this team is a hell of a lot closer to the team that won on the road against Alabama than the team that barely beat Houston, that barely beat a couple of others. I think this is, Washington doesn't have a blemish. Washington looks perfect. I think Texas is still better. They just happen to have that one hiccup.
And if you believe in like college football history storylines and the seasons of destiny and all that stuff, their last year in the Big 12 and the path to the college football playoff, when it's especially with only 4, which we know is also gone, but in the SEC is much harder. So yeah, I mean, it would not surprise me whatsoever. It's painful, but I just think they're a better team than Washington. Although, Brandon, I will say it does feel a little bit like, and I know you were giving Washington a lot more credit than a lot of us, but like it does feel like the way that we treated Washington, or I can say me specifically, treated Washington against Oregon, that it was like just not even giving them a chance. And obviously the spread ended up almost being double digits. There is a little bit of that pause in me. Like, why am I not giving Washington more credit against Texas? But then you are feeling the same way, and you did not feel that way against Oregon. So
yeah. By the way, is there any play in football that makes you feel like more of an asshole than 4th and 1 and they try to draw you off sides and you jump off sides? I think you're the biggest asshole in America if you do that.
Is that what just happened? Shout
out to the Miami Hurricanes that multiple of them jumped off sides on 4th and 1. All they're trying to do is make you jump off sides, and they just said, okay.
And you just fell for the bait. And you know what, Jack? I would assume that if you were running a team, if you were the general manager of a team or the head coach of a team, and somebody did that, you might cut them. You might get rid of them. And if you play Barstool GM, you have that right to do so.
Yes, the Ultimate Pro Football GM app is now available. You've heard me talk about it all season. I've been playing all season. I've had it on my phone. Sometimes you're at a family dinner, family function. It's a little boring. Family friends are over. You're rolling your eyes. You're like, when are they going to leave? Guess what you can do on your phone? You can pull up on your phone and download the Barstool Ultimate Pro Football GM app by going to barstoolgm.com. I apologize. It is not the Barstool Football GM app. It's the Ultimate Pro Football GM app, but you can get it by going to barstoolgm.com or looking it up in the App Store by typing in Ultimate Pro Football GM. Use code Barstool in the game store for a 100% free boost to your franchise. You download the app, you start your franchise, you pick a team. It's the teams that exist, and you can even download some current rosters, and you just roll from there. You're not only just a GM, you're an owner. It's a simulation game. The games get played out, the seasons get played out, and you get to see if you could stack up like you think you can. I was just on bracket episode discussing things that men, or maybe it was just things you think you would be good at. And one of them was being a GM of a sports team. And so you can go and do it right now by going to barstoolgm.com or by looking up Ultimate Pro Football GM on the App Store.
Brandon was
And
so
after you download, you can use code Barstool in the game store for 100% free boost to your franchise.
Rutgers.
Rutgers.
We're trying.
Rutgers.
Your Rutgers through here.
Brandon, can I tell you something? Well, please don't die.
Yeah.
And I say this, and I realize that in retrospect, I don't want to be where you were this year, just like I didn't want to be where A&M was last year. It really sucks when you play in a bowl game and you lose, and it's just, I kind of am jealous you didn't have to play in a bowl game this year.
All right, which opens the door to this discussion.
Katie, I know you're feeling me right now. We had bad days yesterday, okay?
It opens the door to this discussion. I assume Jack's going to be vocal here. Jack's been all over Twitter with his bowl season. Guys, the discussion needs to be had. Are bowl games dead? Now, no, Jack. This is a discussion needs to be had.
I'm shaking my head. The discussion needs to be had.
Discussion needs to be had.
Jack's so offended right
All
now.
I'll say is this, Jack.
He's so offended.
Let me say this. I don't know if bowl games are dead because it's not fair to say right now because we haven't really even gotten to the meat of bowl season. We haven't really gotten to the good bowls yet. We've just had a lot of opt-out bowls, a lot of everything. So put aside that we're having this discussion in bowl season. I'll say this is my point. If you were to set out to kill bowl season, if you were the NCAA and you wanted to kill your bowls and you wanted to kill your postseason, you would take a couple of steps. Number one, you would create a playoff, whether it be 4-team or 12-team, to where those games are really the only ones that truly matter, where you really put stakes on a couple of games and you separate them from the rest. And that is eventually going to choke out the rest as more importance goes on those few playoff games. If you wanted to kill bowl season, what you would do is you would change the player acquisition time from February, which is what it used to be, to December, which is when the bowls are happening, which means you're now recruiting high school players and signing them on the third Wednesday of December. You're now stocking your team. You're doing the transfer portal. If you wanted to kill bowl season, you would open up transfers to be far and wide and free, and everybody in the country could do it. Meaning, if you wanted to have a future in football and you felt you needed to transfer, you would leave your team who's getting ready to play in a bowl. All I'm saying, Jack, if you wanted to kill bowl season, you would take all the steps that have happened right now in college football. The transfer portal, meaning players aren't there anymore, the opt-outs, the playoff, everything is lined up against bowl season. Now, I will allow you, Jack, to take the floor as the defense attorney for bowls and tell me why they are not dead.
I mean, like, it's crazy. People they get on their, whatever it is, they tweet out the people that don't even like. You see, you saying it, Brandon, I don't care because you like college football. Katie saying, I don't care. You like college football. That's fine. I'll listen to that opinion all day. But these people, they come out of nowhere and they go, oh, the bowls don't matter anymore. Transport me to this time when bowls were so special. Like, a team that was so special that they were like, yeah, we didn't make the national championship, even though that's the only reason we play. But man, the Fiesta Bowl is what I really love.
That existed.
When was that?
That existed.
Listen, when 1985 was the internet around?
I can only speak about my childhood and growing up, but in the 80s, the 90s, if you weren't in the national title mix, but you played in the Orange Bowl, you played in the Sugar Bowl, or you played in the Fiesta Bowl, those were big deals. Those were huge, gigantic deals. I don't know why they were. The same logic that applies now applied then, but it's like the NBA basketball. The three-pointer always existed. Teams just didn't know how to use it very well. Now they've changed the entire sport because of how they use the three-pointer. Back then, teams, I guess, were just programmed to believe in the bowls and love the bowls. And even if you're 9-2 and you can't win a national title, you're playing in the Sugar Bowl, that's the biggest thing possible. Now, Santa's not real anymore for those folks, right? Like, we know that those games, and maybe it's just the fact that BCS and the playoff have finally revealed to America that those games don't matter. And if they did matter, players wouldn't opt out. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend that these games mean as much as they did back then, but they didn't mean that much back then. Maybe it was a mistake for the back then folks. I don't know, but it has fundamentally changed. I'm not saying there's not value in bowl games. There's a lot of value, and I'm not even saying they're dead. I'm just saying they've changed. Like USC's bowl game this year, we just found out who Miller Moss is, and he just threw for 6 touchdown passes. We have a new name to talk about going into next year. We have new excitement for USC football. That wouldn't have happened without bowls. But by and large, like the Orange Bowl this year, there's not a player playing that game that wants to play in it. There's not a coach that wants to coach in it. It's just different now.
Brandon,
and that's the truth. What, Jack?
No, I'm going to double down. You said the 80s and the 90s, so it's not even just your age. I mean, when I went to A&M, the college football playoff did not exist, and making a BCS game was a massive deal. When Johnny won the Heisman and A&M did not make a BCS bowl, it was talked about because it was like if you played in one of those games, that was the next level. Sure, you weren't playing for a national title, but you were one of those top echelon teams. I feel the same way Brandon does. Like I used to care so much. Last night when I sat down to watch my team play a bowl game, I was just like, I don't really care what happens. Sure, I'd love for them to win, but I'm worried about next year because the players aren't even here. There's only 55 scholarship players available. We've got a new head coach. I think across the board, there is a little bit of desensitized feelings towards bowl games unless you're gambling on every single one. That's where I think Jack is different. And I'm gambling on some. I'm not gambling on the whole slate. But these teams aren't even the same when you get to the bowl games anymore, unless you're playing for something big. The guys are transferring everywhere. You're not even watching the same teams anymore.
Jack, before you go, let me say one more thing. I think a lot of times this is one of those sensitivity subjects for not you, but for normal college football fans. When I say the bowl games are not as strong as they once were, college football fans will say you're an enemy of college football. You hate college football. You don't love ball. You don't do this. No, I just recognize that this sport has undergone about 25 years of changes in about 36 months, and the bowls have become an unfortunate casualty in some circumstances. Not all of them. I think Ole Miss, Penn State, both those teams want to win. Both those teams want to play. Both those teams are showing up. But Georgia, Florida State is an example of two teams that are not bringing their best. They're not even bringing their second, third, fourth, or fifth best. They're just bringing their scout teams, especially Florida State. So Jack, I'm not an enemy of college football. I'm a lover of college football.
You are.
But where am I wrong is my question.
Well, you're not wrong. The place I would say you are wrong is the place you don't really even believe in, which is, I know you started the conversation for conversation's sake, is bowl season dead. You don't actually want it to go away or anything. It 100% doesn't. Like, we agree there. I would say there's probably a revisionist history with bowl games for the most part. Like, you think Oklahoma cared about the greatest bowl game ever? You think they cared about that game? Like,
yes.
No shot they fucking cared about that game. They were a team that wanted to go to national championship, and they ended up playing Boise State. Like, like if they cared about that game, they would have beat Boise State by 21 points. All right, they didn't care about that game. So, and that's all that being. I bet there's stories, and I'm sure I could hit up Gabe Eichert. I could be like, yo, get me some stories on what the Oklahoma football players were doing in Arizona the night before the Tostitos Fiesta Bowl. And I bet he could get me some.
Oh, for sure. I do think that there's the element of just making bowl games, and the higher the bowl games was more important back then. Like, I do think that the tiers of them, like when it was just like the Orange Bowl, the Sugar Bowl, the Fiesta Bowl, like not all the sponsors and all that, like those things, and maybe it's the purity of college football. But again, and I know people roll their eyes when I talk about this, but it's my own personal experience. I worked for the team at A&M, and every year it did matter if you were at a better bowl than you were the year before. This year, and with the college football playoff, which if you think it's dead now, again, for hypothetical conversation, when it goes to 12 teams in the playoff next year, it's even worse. I don't feel like that matters as much. Like if you played on December 23rd or you played on December 31st, those things really, truly used to matter. And maybe we're just old, Brandon.
They do matter though. Like, and I don't want to insult A&M, but that was like a very like A&M at that point in time, they were very proud of what they were accomplishing for good reason too. Like you had a Heisman, you made it to a BCS bowl. I mean, do you like Mizzou cares about their bowl game a lot
Yeah.
on Friday.
Yeah.
And
No,
Ohio
it's not
State because and then I mean, I can't and then I understand it. Like right now, Miami and Rutgers. Rutgers probably cares a lot. The Miami players probably don't. Now, not every game is going to be perfect. I just wanted to bring up before because we could probably talk about this all day. But people watch bowl games. I don't know. People like they keep bringing this up and they keep acting as if like, oh my God, like bowl games stink. Like, here's the thing: people keep watching more and more and more, and that's because I mean, college football is up as a whole. But I mean, just looking at the numbers from last week, the Northwestern Utah Las Vegas Bowl averaged 3 million viewers on ABC, up more than a quarter from last year. And then ABC Saturday Tripleheader delivered the 3 largest audience of the bowl season thus far. Duke Troy, 3 million people watched. Air Force James Madison, 2.44 million. The Gasparilla Bowl, 2.35 million. All right, those are Christmas Day numbers for the NBA when the NFL is playing. Those are like, like you know what I'm saying? Like,
you're right.
But that's because football, America, it all comes together. And yeah, you're right. Maybe that's gambling culture in America. Maybe they did used to matter more. They probably mattered more because there was less things to do.
Oh.
You didn't have Netflix. You didn't have movie. Oh, were you about to say that?
Brandon did not like that. You had him till then, Jack. You had him till then.
I've been talking for a long time. I'm gonna give you guys back to give you guys back what we're discussing. And
well, the irony here, Jack, is y'all think I was reacting to whatever you just said. They can't call targeting on this for Rutgers. They just can't do it. The irony is that during that whole discussion, I am just zeroed in on what's happening between.
It's in the corner of my eye. I didn't know what was going on. I'm looking at it now. They can't call that targeting.
They can't call that targeting. Did they hold that up as targeting?
But
I don't think
hold on, Kayce. We got to figure out if they held that up as targeting.
No, he's still in the game. He's still in the game.
The irony is there, but in his wonderful speech, by the way, he did mention gambling culture because there are 2 different worlds here, right? So like the casual college football fan, or even just the fan that doesn't gamble versus people that gamble on games. If you're gambling on a game, you absolutely care about it. You are absolutely going to watch it. In general, if you love college football, you're going to watch every single game that's on, whether it's the background noise or you are zeroed in on every single play. And I do not want to see college football go away. But Brandon, if you did not have money on Rutgers, Miami right now, and you were, doing things with your family, you might have it on. And as somebody who covers college football, you got to know what happened and you're paying attention, but you wouldn't be emotionally invested in it.
No, I wouldn't be emotionally invested in it. I'd be watching it a lot more casually. I'd be laid back on the couch in my head. I wouldn't be
like tonight, Arizona, Oklahoma. I am very
invested. I like that one too. I like
awesome game.
I like that matchup a lot. Yeah.
That game is actually really good, and I'm going to gamble on it. So that's a game that I sit down and watch. I do think, though, that Jack, to your point, and you're right, is that, and that's where Brandon reacted, which does make perfect sense. There was not as much to do. There wasn't as much to be entertained by then. There is now. And so it just depends on how much you gamble and how much you want to watch it. I think we can all agree, all 4 of us, and everybody that's listening or watching us right now, more college football is always better. So none of us want to see bowl season go away. None of us want bowl season to be dead, but there is an aura around that they seem to matter less, but that doesn't mean people aren't watching them.
Jack.
Last point. I do think we are, and Brendan brought this up before with Miller Moss and whatnot. The guys who are playing these games, first of all, this isn't basketball. It's borderline impossible to play football in a game you don't care about because if you do, you're going to get injured. Mm-hmm. So these games matter for the players. Yeah. Are they as locked in as they are when they play in-season conference game? Probably not. I'm not saying that, but these players do care, and it can be, not life-changing, but career-changing for a lot of them. And even if it's just like a random game, and USC went 7-5, and their season was a total failure. Why watch them play in the Holiday Bowl? Oh, oh, they have Miller Moss, who may be this next great college football quarterback prospect. And then it throws everything into a flux because then USC's like, what do we do with quarterback now?
Well, that goes back to my point I made many times over the years. Whereas I think bowl seasons change, you'd no longer look at it as your last view of the 2022 team, or 2023 team. You now look at it as a jumping off point for your 2024 season. Miller Moss being a great example. Nobody expected him to throw 6 touchdowns and be incredible. He was. Now all of a sudden USC is more interesting to me. Tennessee is playing Iowa, I believe. Joe Milton's not playing. Nico's Nico's playing. Ayama is what I'm going with. I'm a Liava. Nico is playing. Their freshman that they invested so much money in, he's playing, so that's the jumping off point for them. There's another one, Jackson Arnold, right? He's playing for Oklahoma, jumping off point for them. So there's so many little factors. I think it's just changed to where now your enjoyment out of bowls is a little bit different than it was, and maybe it doesn't feel like it felt. It doesn't mean they're dead.
No.
They have changed, though.
They have changed. Well, my last point to that, Brandon, is that we used to get, when players used to opt out because they were going to the NFL, people were really pissed about it, right? Like, oh, they're leaving their team. If they're not playing for something, they don't feel like playing. Now with the transfer portal, that narrative is gone because guys, they might be leaving, but they're not just sitting out for their NFL future, which I believe you should be able to do without an issue anyways. But it's like, just even paying attention to these guys. It's like, well, they're not leaving this team because they don't want to play in a bowl game. They're leaving this team because they want to go further their career. So it's like it just depends on how you look at it, but you can't fault guys for transferring in the portal when that's where the window is, which is during bowl season. If they changed it to after bowl season, we wouldn't see that. But unfortunately, that's where it is. So that, whether you want change or not, it's changing.
Well, the reality is, and everybody wants to, they can't really change it. It has to be in December because you want to get there for spring football and for the semester, and you can't. If you did it after spring, now you don't have much practice next year. So it's a mess. This bustling holiday season, you might be looking for nutritious, flavorful meals to fuel you on jam-packed days. Anybody got an idea? I do. It's Factor. They're America's #1 ready-to-eat meal delivery service, and they can help you eat well for breakfast, lunch, and dinner with chef-prepared, dietitian-approved, ready-to-eat meals delivered straight to your door. With Factor, you'll save time and stay on track with your healthy lifestyle while tackling all your holiday to-dos. You can cross meal prepping off your holiday list this season with Factor. Skip the meal planning, grocery shopping, chopping, prepping, and cleaning up, and get Factor's fresh, never frozen meals delivered right to your door. Treat yourself to high-quality, delicious meals over the holidays. Choose from 35 chef-crafted meals every week that support a healthy lifestyle. Meet your meal preferences, whether it's calorie smart, vegan and veggie, protein plus, and more wholesome options. Factor not just for dinner. You can count on extra convenience any time of the day with an assortment of 55 plus add-ons that would suit various preferences and tastes. Head to factormeals.com/Walker50. Use code Walker50, get it 50% off. That's code Walker50 at factormeals.com/Walker50 to get 50% off.
Love me some Factor. We all know this. By the way, need to mention again, they're never frozen. They're fresh. I've seen people say, oh, they're just fancy TV dinners. Not so fast, my friends. Much fresher, much healthier, much tastier. No offense to TV dinners.
Announcement. Y'all remember when Marvin Harrison Jr. won the Biletnikoff by 1 vote over Malik Neighbors at LSU, and I did a rant on this show. Like, where are you rewarding talent? Or are you rewarding who had the better year? What are you rewarding, Biletnikoff? Tell me, Biletnikoff. I'd like to announce that from this moment forth, Brandon Walker is now a Biletnikoff Award voter.
You know what? I got asked to be a voter. Hey, you know what? I'm such a YKB boy and against those awards. I said no. I'm not going to vote.
Well, here's the thing, Jack. You are driven by your membership and your stake in the YKB Boys franchise. Me, I'm driven by ego. And I'm driven by value and by people telling me I'm important. Okay? So I do have a vote.
That is, you know,
how do you not have it in your Twitter bio yet?
Respect.
My first thing was I have to go to Twitter to see if he's put it in his bio.
Not yet. No. Well, I hadn't made the announcement yet.
Also, it's going to be so perfect when somebody, it's actually really, you're thinking of multiple steps ahead. Somebody will say, like, you don't know ball, or like, you're an idiot. Like, you're like a dumb Mississippi guy from Mississippi, and you'll be like, "Hey, buddy, you're talking to a Biletnikoff Award voter."
And I also think it's funnier because the guy that helped me do it was like, I'll get you on all these. And I was like, no, just one. I just want one.
You just want the Biletnikoff.
I just want to be solely a Biletnikoff Award voter. I don't want to be Heisman. I don't want to be Walter Camp. None of that.
You could have been a Heisman voter. That's cool though.
Oh, yeah. I mean, trust me, there's people out there that vote for the Heisman a hell of a lot less qualified than anybody on this 4 box right here. So
by far, and that's not even us having egos. That's just a fact.
There's like 700 of them, isn't there?
There's too many. It's how
Brandon,
many there are. Yes.
Here's my question for you. Are you going to start doing like your Biletnikoff watch lists like every week, starting in like June?
June? Hell, I might start next week. I might release my 2024 Biletnikoff Walker watch list next week.
I mean, because I knew obviously during the season you will, because you are a Biletnikoff voter, and I can only imagine how many times that'll be brought up on the Barstool College Football Show. I assume it might even come up on the Arizona Barstool Sports Bowl broadcast in 2 days. I didn't know how early we were starting the Walker Watch.
No, the Walker Watch is constant. All right, I guess we can get out of here soon. And there's anything else we need to discuss?
No, I mean, as far not to be ironic, but are there any other games we want to talk about? Because we say bowl season, it doesn't feel as important anymore, but there are some big New Year's Six games.
Well, I like Jack said, I think Missouri values a win far more than Ohio State does, but can they get it? Because Ohio State is still going to put a very talented team out on that field. I do think the one bowl game where both teams are going to be locked in and really giving it their best shot is the Peach Bowl with Ole Miss and Penn State. And I still think watch that one as kind of an indicator of what happens Monday night, because if Penn State kills Ole Miss, that's interesting to me. If Ole Miss kills Penn State, that's interesting to me. So I will be watching that one a little bit closer, knowing that we have an Alabama, and because I know I took a lot of heat for picking Penn State to win the Big Ten and picking Drew Aller. I think Penn State is a hell of a lot better than what people think. They lost to Ohio State and Michigan. I think they're maybe a top 5 or 6 team in the country. If you look at their defensive numbers, they're off the charts. So if Ole Miss were to beat them, maybe the SEC's got something for that ass. Maybe.
Yeah.
We'll see. Anyway, let's just get out of here.
Go back to, because you're Mr. Missouri. Earlier you said Missouri is going to win the bowl game. Ohio State is going to lose. Now you seem wavering. What's your final?
Oh, no. I think Missouri's going to win that game. I think Missouri is a very good team, and they're going to be very good next year. I think there's a huge step for them winning this game. Ohio State's going to get out there, and I don't think you're going to get the same buy-in from that team. If you do, Ryan Day's a hell of a coach. But I think Missouri does end up winning that game.
Yeah. Any last words about Florida State trying to sue the ACC for almost $500 million in buyout?
That's going to Miami score a touchdown. That's going to come out in the wash and everything. There's going to be a lot of blithering, a lot of blathering. Ultimately, we're heading towards the big teams like Florida State. Florida State will be the first. They'll be in the Big Ten soon, or the SEC, and we're heading towards the SEC and the Big Ten eating all the conferences. It depresses me. I really don't even want to think about it, but yeah. Florida State should have joined the SEC in the 90s if they ever had a chance. I know Florida stood up and whined about it and said, "Oh, please don't put them in here." But listen, I mean, Florida State should be in the SEC. They should have always been an SEC team. They shouldn't be wasting away in the ACC with no protection.
Do you think Florida State wins?
Against who? Georgia?
Yeah.
I don't think they come within 3 touchdowns. Who's going to play for Florida State?
Yeah, no, I know. I didn't.
It's the same quarterback that couldn't move the ball against Louisville. It's like that. Everybody's opting out. Like who's playing for Florida State?
Georgia doesn't want to be there either, but I guess there is the element of just Georgia's just massively more talented than them.
I think Georgia will be mad. They'll be like, "Screw you guys," and blow them to bits if they can.
Yeah, but Georgia's got a lot of opt-outs too. Like this is, All right, let's get out of here. I got to go to dinner. I'll explain that later.
2:30.
Well, guess what? Some people are old.
He's Thanksgiving at 11 a.m. That's true.
Everybody shut up and just stay in the show.
We got to watch the Arizona Bowl. We'll be there, Brandon. I'll see you tomorrow.
Barstool Sports Arizona Bowl. Watch it. That's unnecessary roughness.